Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Heather. I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, elementary, middle, and high school age. Today we're going to be continuing our budgeting series, so let's get started. Okay guys, if you are just seeing this video first, I will recommend that you go back and watch the first video. What I'm talking about in this video will make more sense if you start there. I do have other resources, a corresponding blog post. All of that stuff will be in the description box below so that you have all of the information you need to work through this series with me. Now, last we talked a little bit about why you need a budget, and we also talked about printing out all of your financial statements so that you have a good understanding of where your money is going and how much money you have coming in each month. Now, I do want to share my finance goal with you again, which for 2023, which was create and implement a slow money strategy in order to pay off debt, live a life I love, and that my family loves. I have my little goal card right here from my power sheets. So slow money, that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit more of today. What I want you to hear in that goal is slow money. So when I talk about slow money, I talked about this a little bit in the last video. I am talking about taking a step back and considering my purchases more. And in order to do that, I really have to know where I'm spending my money, which was why I wanted you guys to print out your financial statements for the last 3 months, but ideally for the last year. Were you able to do that? I hope that you were. If you did, leave me a comment and let me know that you did do that part of the homework from last week, because that is going to be really important to what we talk about today. Now, today I'm going to be talking a lot about categorizing your spending. Now, this is not something that I have really done before 2023. I thought that I was categorizing my spending when I would create a budget. And what I meant by spending categories at that point were, these are my bills. These are the variable expenses that I have throughout the month, groceries, gas, that kind of stuff. These are the amounts that I think I'm going to spend, and then everything else is just either savings or incidental purchases, or if we just randomly need something or something comes up. That was kind of how I treated that money that we had at the end of the month. But what I was noticing was that we were not actually having any money at the end of the month. And because of that, I knew that I really needed to get a control in place to help me see where the money was going. Now, it is not a perfect system, and it is something that I am going to continue to improve on in 2024, but I feel very comfortable with some of the systems that I have put in place at this point. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through the spend categories that I have created for myself. This does not mean that you have to use these specific spend categories, but these are the categories that I have and that are very helpful for me to see where our money is going and to really drill down on some of the purchases that we weren't necessarily paying attention to because they were lumped in with other categories. So I will share those with you, and you will kind of see as we go through it together. So when you went through your financial statements, you probably noticed there were some places that you were spending your money week after week, things like the grocery store, things like Amazon or Target, a lot of online purchases, or Walmart.com, the gas station, things like that. So I'm going to go through my categories now, and I encourage you to take note of my categories, but then to also think about whether or not these categories would be applicable to your life and how you may change them or adjust the name to make it fit your family specifically better. So the first one on my budget category list, and these I also have color coded. The one that I have right in front of me has a lot of personal information on it, so I'm not going to share that one on camera, but I will have one linked in the description box for your own information. So the first spend category that I have is debt. And so you're going to think of any debts that you have. That can be your mortgage, it can be car payment if you have car payments, it could be student loans if you have student loans, medical bills. I talked last week a little bit about how Emma had braces put on last year, and so That was a huge expense. So expensive. So anything where you have a monthly payment to pay down a debt, that is going to be in that debt category. The next one that I have now, I also have to say that when I set up this spend category list at the beginning of 2023, I did not think about the order that I put these in. And for 2024, I'm going to have them in a different order, just because, like, in a more organized way for how I have my budget set up. So these might sound kind of all over the place, but that's okay. We're just going to go with it for the time being. The next category is wellness, and that is going to include things like vitamins and supplements, gym memberships, subscriptions to a Peloton would go there. Any sort of exercise equipment that you are specifically using for wellness, that would go there. Also specialty tests like Everlywell, when you do like food sensitivity tests or things like that, that is all going in this wellness category. And you may think, well, why do you have a wellness category? Well, my husband takes a lot of different vitamins and supplements. I don't take nearly as many, but my my husband takes a lot, and I was interested to see how much he's actually spending on all of these vitamins throughout the year, because I never really budgeted for that specific category, but I realized that I needed to. When I looked at my financial statements, I noticed, okay, well, we're spending quite a bit of money on vitamins and supplements. That ought to be its own category because it shouldn't come out of groceries. I can't say that all of those vitamin purchases are groceries because it's not. And it helps me, because I do the majority of the budgeting in my home, to show my husband, this is how much you're spending in these specific categories. The next category I have is personal. That is personal hygiene products, makeup, personal care, feminine products, shampoos and conditioners, all of that kind of stuff goes into personal. Then I have a clothes category that is both for Matt's and my clothes and my kids' clothes. I know that some people will separate the two, but I have them together. The next category is entertainment, and that is going to be subscriptions like Netflix or Kindle Unlimited. It's going to, or Amazon, any sort of subscription that you have, movies and books that we purchase, or going to the movies, that kind of stuff is all entertainment. The next category that I have is medical, and that is copays, prescriptions, any medical bills that come through, obviously. Life insurance is one that I ended up putting in this category because I do not have an insurance category in my spend categories because homeowners insurance is paid through escrow for us, and car insurance goes in my cars category. And so I lumped life insurance in medical. It's not it's not a monthly purchase, it's a quarterly purchase. So that's where it is. I also have over-the-counter medicine, Band-Aids, first aid supplies, all of that also goes under medical. The next category is cars, that's gas, maintenance, repairs, car insurance. That all goes into that category. Groceries, my category for groceries is the essentials. It's not the extras. If there are extra things that we are purchasing, it may go in the entertainment category, or I also have a holiday category. So I budget differently for things like Thanksgiving and Christmas. The food that I purchase for those two big holidays are not coming out of our normal grocery budget because they're specialty things, they're things that we don't normally have, and they honestly are things that we don't necessarily have to have. If we have to cut back on something, we're not going to be able to cut back on bread or milk or eggs or, vegetables, but we could cut back on the specialty food that we're having around Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I am only putting essentials, and it is only food in this category. It is not household expenses. So the next category is related to food, and that is eating out, and that's restaurants, coffee shops, food trucks. buying little snacks at the gas station when you fill up your car with gas, which I do not do, but my husband does quite a bit. So that is a different category from groceries. Then another category that some people will lump in with groceries is household items. Now, household items, that is going to be for my family. It's going to be decorative things like baskets or bookshelves or things that we need in the house. Those are not regular purchases for us, but then it's also going to be cleaning supplies like toilet paper, paper towel, and miscellaneous home supplies like stamps and envelopes and other household things that we need. So that category could technically be separated into different categories. It could be, home decoration could be a category. If you spend a lot of money decorating your home, it might be more helpful for you to do that. For me, I don't spend a ton of money on decorative things or even functional things for our home. I try to make do with what we have, and we haven't purchased a ton of stuff for our home since we moved in 2020. Like, we did most of our purchases, like curtains and things like that, when we first moved into our house. The next category that I have is homeschool, and not everybody will have that category, obviously, but most of my audience ought to have that category. That is going to be books, it's going to be resources, it's going to be personal development for you as a homeschool mom as you are learning about methods, if you subscribe to any encouraging communities. It's also books and curriculum, resources, school supplies, projects, things that you need to purchase randomly throughout the year for science experiments. All of that kind of stuff goes into homeschool. Also, any subscriptions, again, that you have for your kids. Things like if you do reading eggs, or if you have study.com or education.com or KiwiCo for specific projects, or Mel Science, or there's so many different subscription services geared towards learning for your kids. So that would also go in the homeschool category. A couple of other things that I include in the homeschool category is the Adobe Creative Suite, because both of my kids use that for a lot of their passion projects. Emma does Photoshop, she does Animate, she does Adobe Rush, she does Premiere Pro. Jack, very similar to what Emma does, although he doesn't do animation. So all of those types of things would also fall in this category. And then like Skillshare is another one, with classes or OutSchool, stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into that homeschool category, and it really does need to be a category for us, because that's one of the biggest areas that I spend money throughout the year, because I want to make sure that my kids have the tools that they need to foster their interests and to learn what they need to learn. So the next category is holidays, and I did briefly talk about that, but that's going to be birthdays, Christmas, for us, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, our anniversary, Matt's and my anniversary, Halloween, Thanksgiving, the Super Bowl also falls into this, Christmas, all of the big holidays that we celebrate as a family go in here. Christmas and Advent should also be in here. So that's something that we need to focus on. I have a lot of nieces and nephews as well, so we need to make sure that we are accounting for everybody for birthdays and for the holidays. Then the next category I have is utilities, which probably should be up. I should have like debt, utilities, groceries, household expenses, clothes should probably be the order of the of the spending categories, but they're not. That's going to be things like electricity and your cell phone, cable and internet is also under utilities. I also have heating oil for us, and pellets. That's also part of our utilities. They are not monthly expenses. They are more yearly expenses, but they are very large expenses, especially now. It's a lot more expensive now to buy oil. So I have that under utilities as well. Then the next category I have is kids, and this is going to be sports or other extracurricular activities. It's going to be birthday parties that my kids go to, that kind of thing. I don't account for clothes in the kids category. It's more just random things that come up that we need to purchase for the kids that aren't normal expenses, I just have an extra category for that. We don't spend a ton of money in this category, but I noticed when I was going through my financial statements, there were quite a few purchases that I did want to just make a note of, so that when I think about our financial goals for next year, which I will do in December, I understand like sports or activities or art classes or music lessons, all of that stuff would go in here too. Technically, it could be in either homeschool or kids category. It really just depends how you want to separate your categories. Then the next category I have is homestead, which is different from household. Homestead is our chickens, it is outside projects, home repairs, our garden, pretty much anything that's outside the home is homestead, and what's inside the home is household. I know that may seem very strange and not necessary, but it kind of is for us. I need to know how much we're spending each month on chicken feed, if it makes sense for us to keep the chickens or not keep the chickens. I need to know how much, some of the more home maintenance type things cost, like getting the well checked or getting the furnace checked. And those types of expenses just don't fit in the household category for me. It would make our household category very odd if I'm accounting for cleaning supplies and toilet paper, but then also furnace repairs and replacing a roof on the garage, or how much feed I'm getting for the chickens each month, or whatever it is. Then the next category I have is our dog, and that is food, supplements, vet, prescriptions that she has, which thankfully she doesn't have any right now, so that's really good. And then the next 4 categories are investing, which is any investments that you have. It could be 401k, it can be IRA, it can be rental income if you own homes that you rent out, or Airbnb, that kind of stuff. Then I have a giving category that is for tithe, it is for offerings, it is for giving to different organizations within the community. That all falls into one category. Income is another category, and then savings is my last category. So that is 20 categories, and that may seem excessive. And obviously, I have really drilled down on some of them, specifically groceries, eating out, wellness, personal, household, and homestead. A lot of people will lump a lot of those things together, but the reason that I separate them is so that I have a full understanding of how much money I'm spending each month in those different categories. Now, I know that there are some purchases that are purchases that have to happen. Things like groceries. Yes, you can cut back on your grocery purchases a little bit, but if you lump vitamins in with your groceries and you happen to spend $50 a month on vitamins for everybody in your family, that $50 on a tough month might be better used buying milk and bread and eggs. And so understanding where your money is going within these different categories has been so eye-opening for me as I've gone through this year. Now, when I started the year, my goal was to do spend tracking every single day. And I was not very successful at that because I do not spend money every single day. Some people do, and if that's you, I would definitely look at maybe spend tracking each day, which spend tracking is writing down your purchases and then categorizing them and the amount. So if I go to the grocery store and I buy groceries, but then I also buy vitamins and toilet paper, I am putting that into 3 different categories. If I go to Target and buy some birthday presents, but then I also get decorative things or things that I need, like a new shower curtain, that is going to be split up into different purchases. I will write it down. I will separate out the categories for that particular purchase with a dollar amount for each of the categories, and then I will highlight it with the specific color so that at the end of the month, when I am summarizing all of our spending for the month and categorizing everything in one lump sum, I see how much we're spending in each category. And so I started to do it every day, but I realized that it makes more sense for me to do it weekly. I would like to do it on Friday. Sometimes I do it on Friday, sometimes I do it on Saturday. It really depends on what's going on during the week. When Emma was doing cross country, it was really hard for me to do any sort of spend tracking on Friday because most of her meets were on Friday. And so I was kind of all over the place, just trying to figure out any time that I could get some sit down time, because it does take a little while to write down all of those purchases. Now, if you go out on a Saturday and you run a bunch of errands, it's better to come home and write out those purchases now rather than wait another week and deal with it the week later. Ask me how I know. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can go through and a couple of times a month just decide that you're going to take a couple of hours to do all of that writing of the different categories and what you spent and highlighting if you want. But I would say weekly is the best way to do it. And that is kind of what it has come to for me as we get towards the end of 2023. The next step for you is going to be looking at your spending, recognizing where you're spending your money. Now, this could be a little bit more difficult because like I said, if you go to the grocery store and you buy things that may be in several different categories, you won't necessarily know that by looking at your bank statements. That is going to be something that as you move forward, you're really going to have to focus on if you want to do spend tracking the way that I'm doing it, which I definitely suggest you do. I think that it has been incredibly helpful for me this year to see where the money is going, and it helps me in my budgeting process. Next week, we're going to talk about putting together a budget, but you really need to understand how much you're spending in each of the categories before you can even start your budget. So as an example, you're setting up a budget and you may think, okay, well, for groceries, I'm going to put $500 because that seems like a good amount for groceries. I feel like $125 a week is plenty for groceries. So that's what you put in because you haven't looked at what you actually spend in a month. But when you go through your financial statements and you categorize your spending, you realize that you actually spend $1,500 a month on groceries. Well, if you put $500 a month in for groceries, obviously, that is not going to cut it. You want to look at the average amount that you have spent over the past few months, and most likely that's where you're going to want to start with your grocery budget. But a lot of people won't do that. They will just plug in numbers that they think sound good or that they hope sound good, and instead of being realistic about their budget, they are being idealistic about their budget, and what happens is you're not able to follow the budget, and then everything falls apart and you think that budgeting doesn't work. But the reason that the budget doesn't work is because you didn't start with realistic numbers. So go through your financial statements again, really dig deep and categorize your purchases. Now, if you've done a lot of purchases online, you can go back in, they track those purchases. You can go to Target. They have your in-person purchases. If you use their little rewards program where you put in your phone number, they track your online purchases. You can go in and separate those purchases out as to what category each of the items ought to go in. Is it a lot of work? Yes, it is. But I am telling you that if you put in this work in the front end, you will have a much better picture of where your spending is going and where you can make improvements in the next year so that maybe you're not spending as much, or maybe you're changing some of your spending habits. But if you don't know where your money is going, it's going to be really hard for you to put actual numbers down on a budget that you can stick to. Now, I'm not saying that you don't want to cut back on your spending. You absolutely can. But if that first month you're trying to cut your grocery budget by 50%, it's not going to work. So you definitely need to come in with real numbers, real categories that fit your life, your family. You can use mine, you can create new ones, you can use fewer categories if you want, but I'm definitely going to want you to do this for next week when we start going through our budget. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful. If you have questions about anything that I talked about, please let me know in the comments, or you can email me. My contact form is always in the description box. If you're looking looking for more help and encouragement, I would love for you to come check out my membership community. That link is also in the description box. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and I will see you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye.